This is episode 20 of the Remix Your World podcast, and today I'm talking to Superchumbo, aka Tom Stephan. Welcome to Remix Your World. I'm Allison Kalagna, global DJ and music producer turned life remixer and personal growth coach. In each episode, we bring you real talk, inspiring stories, and heartfelt conversations of personal transformation to help you uplift and amplify your life. This is the Remix Your World podcast. Tom Stephan is an artist who truly marches to his own drum. The US-born, UK-based DJ has headlined the world's most highly regarded parties and clubs, from Black Party New York to White Party Palm Springs, from Space Ibiza to Stereo Montreal and Ageha Tokyo, while holding down residencies at Beyond London, Matinee Barcelona, Party Madrid, Big Paris, Rapido Amsterdam, Karmabeat Mexico City, and Alegria New York City. In the studio, he's among the most accomplished, with a discography of original and remixed work that includes 18 Billboard dance chart number ones and reads like a who's who of global dance music producers, from Basement Jaxx to Beyonce, Missy Elliott to Major Lazer. Most well known for his Superchumbo moniker, Tom's sound was born out of the New York City after-hours scene and merged with his home base in East London. Never one to accept complacency, Tom has embraced the creative advantage of using Tractor as his DJ instrument. This full-fledged flexing of technology allows him to create an unrelenting dance floor experience that is unrivaled in terms of intensity, creativity, and fluidity. Come hear for yourself why Tom Stephan is heralded as one of the best in the game.
Yo, check this out.
So, what if you could find a way to have more joy, creativity, and passion in your daily life? Imagine if lack of time wasn't in your way of doing what you love. What if you found the courage to pursue the vision that lies deep within you? What if the fear of judgment and all of those negative voices in your head didn't hold you back from living and loving out loud? What would it look like if you had a community of fierce allies who inspired you to be the best version of yourself? The CIJ Clarity Catalyst is based on a Stanford University's master's degree course in transformation. CIJ teaches you how to remix difficult situations into daring possibilities. It helps you silence the negative mind chatter. It helps you create more authentic relationships by deepening your communication skills. CIJ helps you turn up the volume on self-confidence while bringing peace, play, and purpose into your daily life. I would be honored to teach you what I have learned. Now, I can promise you, there's plenty of tough love, coaching, and real talk. But I can also promise you there's plenty of laughter and play, because that's just who I am at the core. And I would love to meet who you are at your core. If you're looking for change, if you're looking to get unstuck, if you're looking for true clarity, then I highly invite you to take this powerful 8-week journey with me. Now, CIJ isn't for everyone. If you're the kind of person who wants change but doesn't want to really dig in and do something about it, it's not for you. And I would rather us not try and work together than for you to convince yourself that you're ready. I want you to be really ready for this course. And it's going to take some daring. And it's going to take a little bit of muscle. And it's going to take a lot of courage. But if you are ready, then it's ready for you. Find out if you and I are a good fit for each other. And if we are, welcome to class, my friend. If you want to find out more, head over to remixyourworld.com/CIJ. Today I'm talking to Tom Stephan, also known as Superchumbo. How the hell do you even come up with a name like Superchumbo? Well, we find that out. So you'll have to stick around and listen. We sat down and talked about life, music, and his sobriety. And I was inspired to hear his story about the 12 steps and how they're a huge anchor in his life. In the club world, it doesn't get talked about a lot. And so I'm really honored that he came on to talk about it. I found a lot of inspiration in our conversation, and I know you're going to find some as well. So without further ado, let's jump right into my conversation with Tom Stephan. Yeah, so we'll just kind of like rewind the record because I know you were actually, it was requested to have you. So I thought that was really awesome, and I'm glad that you said yes. So we'll just kind of start at the beginning, but like way back. So back to like little Tom. So where were you born, raised, all of that good jazz?
So I was born in Olean, New York, which is it's 90 minutes south of Buffalo, New York, kind of Buffalo, Niagara Falls, kind of on about half an hour north of Pennsylvania border.
Yeah.
Kind of nowhere.
And were you musical as a kid?
Well, yes. I mean, my father's a musician, and my uncles are musicians, and so I didn't really have a choice. I think, like, when I was 1 year old, I got a toy drum set, and when I was 2, I got a piano, and 3, I got a guitar, and so it was like, I didn't have much of a choice. And then, but my father being into music, there was always musical equipment around the house too. So I just had like some, one of his old guitars to play, or
Did you gravitate toward beats, the drums or guitar or piano more, or?
It didn't really. I started playing guitar, I guess, because that's what my dad did, and he tried to give me lessons. But I think that's a little bit like, well, for us anyway, it was a bit like trying to teach a family member to drive, like really frustrating. And so I never really learned to play the guitar very well. I never learned to play anything very well, actually. But when I was, how old would I must have been? Maybe when I was 9 or 10. I saw Devo on Solid Gold or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And that kind of, actually before that I was into Kiss, but it was really when I discovered Devo, and I said, wow, Dad, how do they make that sound? And he said, well, son, that's a synthesizer. I want to play one of those. And he said, well, then you need to learn to play the piano. And so I took piano lessons for a while, but that was really when I started to have some direction of my own. Like, I knew I wanted to do something musical, but it was kind of when I discovered Devo that I started thinking, now we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah. And did you get called to like to make, so like when did you hear electronic music, and were you, like you were saying, so it was more of like, I want to create that. So it wasn't a DJ that kind of brought you into that, or?
No, well, I mean, because also, being in Olean, New York when I was a kid, you weren't, before MTV, there wasn't really much of any. We had like one radio station, WPIG, the Pig, all country music, and that's not even a joke.
Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. And it was, I mean, back then it wasn't easy. I can't imagine how life would have been different if we had the internet then. But anyway.
I know.
So it was just kind of like, I don't know, like that kind of searching, because it was like when I heard Devo, I thought it was just like, it's speaking to me. And it's kind of like following that path and following, looking for music that I was into. And then it really wasn't until, and then I went from there to like industrial music. Nights Arab again was another time when I thought, oh my God, these guys are doing something that's just like making me crazy. Like it's like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And my friends when I was in college, I had friends that were into house music, but I wasn't totally at the time until I went to the Sound Factory for the first time and heard Junior Vasquez and discovered this whole kind of like, darker sounding house, like, DJ Pierre and Kashmir and all of that stuff. That's when it really changed my mind about house music, and that was kind of the night that I was converted into a house head. first trip to the Sound Factory.
God, can you imagine? It's like so many of us, like Junior Vasquez converted us, it's like, wow, from that.
Honestly, when I think about, I don't know how you could have gone to the Sound Factory and not been converted. Just because of the atmosphere and the people everyone around you was so happy and so into the music. It was just contagious.
Yeah. And so then what propelled you then of like, okay, fuck, I got to start making this?
So, so then, I mean, by that time, when I first went to the Sound Factory, I had then come to London, and they weren't playing the same kind of music here.
Right.
And that's really what made me think about DJing. That and the fact that I was here as a student, and I really shouldn't have been staying, but I didn't want to leave either.
What were you studying?
I was studying film.
Nice.
Although I wasn't convinced that that's what I wanted to do. I really wanted to do music, but I didn't have the nerve to just try to do it. And I didn't really know, I didn't know how to go about it really. But then I got into clubbing and I kind of started thinking maybe I can do this. And, and there seemed to be a reason to do it because I thought people aren't playing what I want to hear. So somebody else must want to hear this.
Right.
Actually, the truth is, no one did for quite a while. And it was always like, DJing and, play 2 for you and 1 for me. And,
Yeah. I think that's pretty common. Sometimes there's still gigs like that.
Absolutely.
So when you became a DJ then, so how did break it down and tell us where the Superchumbo came from versus the Tom Stephan and, that whole thing, because that's how I found you was Superchumbo, which most of us, I mean, from Twisted on the Get This with the little pussy on the little cover.
Well, actually, before Superchumbo, there was Tracy and Sharon. That was my first.
Okay.
That was my first recording name.
All
and
right.
DJ, actually. I mean, that started by I went to a rave here with a friend, and he said, "Oh, this place is full of Tracy and Sharons." And I thought, what does that mean? But I thought it was hilarious. And I said, "Oh, you and we should start a DJ or a production team and be Tracy and Sharon." And we were going to do it, and he kind of bailed. And then I thought, well, fine, I'll do it myself. I'll be Tracy and Sharon. And actually, it's my initials, TAS. And so I thought that was pretty funny. But actually, back then, which was also pre-internet, really, people. I would get bookings and I'd show up and they'd think, why are you one person and not a drag queen? Because that's what they expected. And it was just me. And so that got a little bit confusing. So, so at one point I kind of decided to drop that. And Superchumbo came from, I was at, I'd gone to Lisbon, or it was just outside of Lisbon. There was like a Twisted festival in Portugal, and so we had gone to hear Danny Tenaglia play at this castle outside and outside of Lisbon. And driving back from there at 9:00 in the morning, we stopped to get gas, and I got out to fill up the car, and the pump said like Chumbo or S Chumbo or Super. And I was like, what do you want, Chumbo or Superchumbo? That was just like, it was a long night. It was just one of the times so Superchumbo just stuck.
That is so awesome.
And it's not even right, because actually S Chumbo meant Sem Chumbo. Superchumbo means super leaded. It doesn't really kind of exist. But anyway, that's actually where it came from.
Yeah, but you're the one and only Superchumbo. That's what makes it so amazing. Yeah. That's what's so awesome. So what do you think has been from then you began, because it's so different now, right? And so talk to us a little bit about the differences that you see now as to what it was like back then. Because when you were creating music, I'm sure you were all analog, but I mean, you had to have been.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, listen, I just came back from the studio right now with a hard drive in my bag. I used to go to the studio with, I used to have to, take a taxi full of equipment and bring in a giant, JD800 keyboard and, Emax sampler and all of this stuff that you drag around. In fact, I dragged it up to Manchester to work in a studio there too. I mean, it's just insane about what we had to do then. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's all in your laptop now.
It's crazy. Did you have your favorites, like your favorite gear then now that they've released it in terms of digitally or VSTs that you use?
I haven't. That's funny. I haven't really specifically gone back and used something that I used to have. But I did have my Roland JD800 for a long time. I just sold it this year. I just got it was like there was like 3 keys left at work. I thought, all right, we've been together for a long time, but it's time to let you go.
Have you been? I'm sure you've been to that. What is that place called? Is it G5 in Tokyo? I think it's called G5, something like that. That old vintage keyboard shop in Tokyo.
Oh no, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'll send you a link to it so the next time you're over there, it's unbelievable.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. So when you started producing, when did you start getting bigger and what records do you feel like were really big pushes? Because, as a DJ playing your records, I saw them, but I'm curious as what it was for you. Because for me, like This Beat Is, Fierce Ruling Diva, those were things where it's like, wow, this cat is like onto a totally different level.
I was having my moment right then. But actually, speaking of Get This, though, that actually came from a remix that I did for Nena Cherry, because I did this. My manager at the time was working. He was working with this indie label, and they had done this thing with Nena Cherry, and so I ended up doing a remix of that. And at the time, I had met Danny Teneglia, and so I was sending him my things, and he said, actually, maybe he played the Nena Cherry thing, but he said, I really wish you did a dub of this. And then Rob from Twisted said, I really like this too. I would put it out if it was like, I love the track. Like if it was a different vocal, I would put it out. So we asked the label, like, do you care if I take this instrumental and do something else with it? And they were like, no, go ahead. And so that became Get This.
Wow.
And I think that Danny played that. So that was really important. That, again, that was like another thing that kind of like, I don't know, solidified my path where I was kind of going and developing that sound and being part of the Twisted family, I guess. And but then it wasn't until the Revolution that things actually changed. That, I mean, in other words, I wasn't really aware. I'm always surprised when people tell me that they knew Get This, because I wasn't really aware of anybody knowing it. And then I did the Revolution and like a lot of other things that I did. I sent them around to a bunch of labels. Nobody was interested. It's too dark. We don't like it. And then it was like, it was like around Christmas or something, and I was talking to Danny on like AOL Messenger or something like that, and he said, hey, that track that you sent me is doing really well at vinyl. And I was like, what track? What are you talking about? And he said, The Revolution. And I said, really? I didn't even know you played it. And he said, yeah, no, it's like a big hit at vinyl. And then a few months later, it was the Miami Music Conference, and it was that cliche of the music conference, that it was like he played it that night at his party, and when I got home a few days later, my email was full of like Pete Tong, Deep Dish, Express 2, like all these people asking for this track, and it was like totally blew my mind. And from then,
what was the sample in that? Where did you get that sample?
It wasn't a sample. It's Victoria Wilson James. She actually sang she was in Soul to Soul for a while. And she was working for, how did I meet her? She was like sharing an office with a club promoter that I worked with. And she's just like amazing. Like she's, you know, she just has like whatever, like star quality, you know, she just looked like she walks into the room and you're like, you know, and she's got this amazing voice. And my friend said, yeah, you know, she used to be in Soul to Soul and she's made some record. And I was like, oh, I want to make a record with her. And that's how that happened. And we did quite a few things together around that time.
And so what was the inspiration behind it? Were you frustrated or was she frustrated? Like, how did the vocals come about where you were like, hey?
Actually, so we were actually working on something else we were trying to do something a bit more commercial. We were trying to do like a new kind of inner city thing, like house music, but pop house music, but kind of, and we were writing these songs. And in fact, we kind of had a record deal at one point, and then the person who was in the record company got fired and somebody else got it and it never went anywhere. I don't know. And then while we were doing that, I suddenly had this idea that like when I was DJing, I kept thinking, I like these defected records with soulful vocals. I like techno records. I think we should put them together. I want to make a techno record with a soulful vocal. That was my idea. And this idea for It's Time for the Revolution. It's funny. I can remember where I was walking down the street when I started singing it in my head. Anyway, so I said, listen, can we just like stop this other stuff we're doing right now and I've got this idea and so we did the Revolution and then I said, and she was like, oh, so let's do some harmonies and stuff. And I was like, no, but I don't want to make it any more like a song. I kind of want it to be like I sampled you, but like,
Yeah.
So that was, that's what it was. But then again, but like I said, it was probably 6 months before I knew that Danny was playing it or anything. I thought the track had just kind of come and gone. And then, but it was just one of those things that, when he played it at the conference, it was a moment. And, and then the other thing that happened was I had done, I just wanted to time stretch this. I found this acapella of Get Your Freak On. Missy Elliott, and I just wanted to time stretch it so I could fly it over my DJ set or whatever. And then once I did put it, so I was in the studio, and then once I put it in the computer, then I thought, well, I should just put some percussion behind it. And then, and then by a few hours later, I had a mix. And then next thing I know, Pete Tong was playing that too. And then they decided to sign it. And it was those few things both happening at once that suddenly I had this kind of interest in what I was doing. And that was really, that's what really changed things.
Wow. And then you started getting booked, obviously, as Superchumbo.
Yeah.
What do you think some of the, oh God, man, because it's such a different time back then. So what were some of the biggest parties that you walked away from of like, oh my God, I'm going to remember this forever?
Well, some of the things that, I remember, because like right before, it's funny too, because it's right before the Revolution, I had this person who was interested in, sorry, maybe I should turn my email off, who was interested in managing me. And so I started working with her, and she hooked me up with this DJ agent, and the agent was like looking at my diary, and she's like, next year we'll have that completely booked solid. And I was thinking, yeah, okay. Like, what? Sure, okay. And then so we had this whole plan of like, we're really going to make this work. Just need a hit record. That's all. And I was like, yeah, okay, guys. And I was like, well, I'll keep making music, and we'll just see what happens. And then suddenly it did happen. And then suddenly I was booked solid for a few years, and it was nuts. But I remember the first time I went to Asia. Somebody was asking before I went, like, what do you think it's going to be like there? Do you think like they're going to know your music? And I said, I doubt it. I mean, how could they? And so the first place that I played was in Taipei, and I played the Revolution, and like the whole place sang along, and it blew me away.
Wow!
I was just like, you're kidding me? You know this? It was just like, it was totally nuts. It was totally like overwhelming. Yeah, really amazing.
I find somebody was asking me the other day, like, where is your favorite place to play? And I was sharing what it's like playing in Asia because of that reason. There's such a there's an appreciation like no other that I've experienced. I feel like they're very appreciative.
Absolutely.
It's been amazing. So what do you feel has been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome in music? Because now, I mean, you've been doing this, a long time.
Well, so that's it right there. Right? How do you stay relevant and stay exciting in a time when really it's like everyone's constantly looking for the next thing. And I understand that myself because I do the same thing. It's like being a DJ and a producer, you're kind of on both ends of it, right? You know, you're like, you're looking for something new and exciting at the same time as then trying to figure out what it is that you still do and how you produce. And so yeah, it's like, there's been, it's very it's very up and down. I mean, there was this, around the revolution time that kind of took me, before that I had been playing pretty much exclusively in gay clubs because that's where I go. It's where I went out. It's where, gay guy that went to gay clubs, and then that's where I wanted to play. That's where my friends went. That's where I wanted to be. So that's kind of, the way that went. And then suddenly with the revolution, it kind of took me to a totally different place. And then I kind of really lost touch in a lot of, depends on the city. Some places I always played gay parties, other places I didn't. And London was one of them. Then I really lost touch with the gay scene in London. And then after, I don't know, maybe it was probably 2007 or 2008. That kind of, it's like I felt like my production, I backed myself into a corner, or I went far down a road that I thought, what am I doing down here? And I really got into kind of the Dutch sound before it became EDM or something like that, because it was like where I was. Music just seems to paths cross, and then they diverge and go off, and I felt like the twisted sound, techno sound, I felt wasn't exciting enough. I kind of took this other path, and then suddenly I found myself, thought, what am I doing here?
Right.
And so because I didn't sound right for a lot of the bookings that I was getting, and so it was like I had to kind of reinvent myself and start again. And so that's exactly what I did. I found myself in London, and no one wanted to book me here. And so I just started what I did in the beginning, was start my own party and kind of build things from scratch again.
Yeah.
And really there was this period of kind of not a lot of, it was a bit like I don't make sense anywhere at the moment. Mm-hmm. And then, but I just kept doing my thing. I just kept like, well, whatever. It's not like, I just kept, chugging along. And then it wasn't until the remix that I did for Partition that suddenly that kind of, kick-started this other little wave of something, I don't know, kind of my rebirth on the gay scene, I feel like.
Right, yeah. And when you were going through that kind of that period when you were talking about musically where you're like, this isn't right, something's not off, was that, because you've been open about the depression, was that around that time also?
Well, I'm sure that definitely. It was definitely a very challenging time. It was one of the times that I thought, wow, can I not actually make a living doing this anymore? Mm-hmm. Like, do I need to figure out something else to do, because is this not going to work? But interesting. That happened for me right before the revolution too. It's because also, that post that maybe you're referring to, I talked about addiction as well. And actually it was when, because I feel it's really relevant, that I got clean and sober in 99. Okay. And I made the revolution that year, like at the beginning of 2000 or halfway through 2000. And it really felt to me like anything that happened after that, all of the gigs and productions and everything, I never would have been able to do it a year before or 2 years before. I just wouldn't be able to do it. I was like, I was, in my 20s and I enjoyed myself, and then suddenly it wasn't enjoyable anymore. It was just like, the party didn't stop and it just got dark, and it was addiction at that. And I didn't realize how much of my life it was taking up and how much brain it was taking up. And then having this, suddenly having this moment where I was clean and not even really realizing that was a possibility. It was really like kind of a rebirth moment. And that was when the revolution happened. And it was like, it was really amazing that it happened that way.
Yeah, that's actually, that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's really cool. What was the moment that you decided, this is it, I can't do this anymore, I have to get clean? Do you remember that exact moment?
Well, there was a couple, I suppose, if you mean like having a rock bottom. There was a couple. A friend of mine, we had been DJing and up all weekend, and he was actually, he was a dealer, and it was just the two of us there, and he said, it's just us junkies left.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, I mean, you are. And then I thought, wait a minute. How can I be sitting here with this guy and blaming him and thinking you're something and then I'm not? How can I say I'm not? Like, wait a minute. There's that. And then I don't know, maybe a month or two after that, he killed himself.
Wow.
And it was just like things like that were just happening, but it was just like, you know what, this is no joke. And I had been trying to stop for maybe a year or two myself, and just thinking, come on, I just need to get it together. I just need to, okay, that's enough of that. And I just couldn't stop, it would just be, and it was things that, it wasn't like, I don't know, maybe I wasn't probably what I would imagine a hardcore drug user was. I was a club drug user, I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I mean, it was like ketamine was my thing, right? So it wasn't, and even at the time there was, I was like calling like the National Drugs Helpline, and they would say like, well, actually ketamine's not even an addictive drug, so we can't really help you.
Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. That's what they thought back then. I've met a lot of people that would disagree since then.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought now.
No, I'm glad that we went there. I wanted to go there.
And that was the reason that, I always find it's like, I'm always happy to talk about this, but I always kind of shy away from it because I feel like, I don't know if I don't ever want to sound like I would talk about something like this as I don't know. It just feels like an awkward thing to talk about. But also I do just see, like, I assume that everybody knows that there's help available, or that this can be a problem and that you can do something about it. I just assume that everyone knows that, but sometimes I think maybe people don't. Maybe people aren't aware of 12-step programs and all of the ways that you can get help. And that's why I ended up, posting that thing, because I just thought Yeah, no, I appreciate that you did. I'm glad that you did. Because I think too, it's not also that I don't think a lot of people know is I think it's easy to not get real with yourself about it, So like for you to be like, oh, I just need to get it together. That's a very common thing until you had that moment of like, oh, fuck, wait a minute. Am I a junkie? Like, this is crazy. So I think the whole purpose of me building Remix Your World and me having to do this myself and remix my own life is to have this place for people to actually talk about this, because in our industry, we're so busy being fierce and fabulous that we don't want to talk about what's going on underneath all of that, and so it's important. So I'm grateful that you've come on to talk about it, because it needs to be talked about. Yeah. Also, I feel like there's places where maybe in the US or the UK, I feel like maybe people are more aware of addiction and, but maybe I find in other countries, because a lot of times people go, you go to DJ somewhere and you go for dinner and they'll go, oh, do you want wine? And you go, actually, no, I don't drink. Like, but do you want a beer? And I go, no, actually, I don't drink. You mean you don't drink? You don't do anything? And then they go, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, and they get it. But there's some places where there is no oh moment, and they just kind of go, but just have a glass. And you're like, no, I'm really not. No, not even a glass of champagne. No, not even a sip. No, really.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that makes me think it's not clicking with you. That, you know, is it not, you know, in a place where I play in Milan is popping to mind. And it just made me think, you know, maybe there are people, you know, maybe there's places and people that don't know. And so maybe it is helpful to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Because for sure it's, you know, it's around, it's, you know, it's all over. And, you know, and I for a long time just thought, but I'm just doing what my friends are doing. So what's wrong with that? Yeah. Well, I've discovered what's wrong with that is it's a problem for me. It might not be a problem for anyone else. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm certainly not like going to judge anyone for what they do. I would be kind of a hypocrite to, you know, to do that. But I have to admit that, you know, that for me, this is the way for me is you know, I need to abstain. That's really the only solution. I had amazing times in my 20s. They have offered me a lifetime of inspiration, but it just needed to stop. And I'm so glad it did.
So you mentioned 12 steps. Was that a big piece for you in getting clean?
It was the only thing that worked for me. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been the thing that's that worked for me and continues to work. You know, I still go to meetings. I'm still yeah.
How did your friend circle start to change when you started to get sober?
Well, I mean, I had to take time away from DJing. I had to take time away from friends. But I would say that actually, I would say that I never, you know, in fact, I thought, oh my God, am I going to still want to make moody, you know, music? Or am I going to be like into jazz now or what?
Right.
Anyway, and then I discovered, no, that wasn't the case at all. And that was when I made my Revolution and went on to do all those things. So that didn't change. But I had to take time away from people. And I think that I probably reconnected with those people, but maybe in a different way and maybe not, you know, over time. I needed to have some space, and we're probably not as close as we used to be or whatever, or we don't hang around probably just because I'm not out at 6 a.m. going after hours party anymore unless I'm DJing at it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. Do you love playing? So when you play now, or do you prefer playing those after hour slots in terms of times, or, I mean, is it, because for me, it's gotten, I love the music, but it's like harder and harder to play at like 6 a.m. now, I find.
No, I would say that's true. I mean, yeah, that can be true. Although, I mean, I suppose ultimately what I like doing is playing wherever the music works best. That's what makes me happy, really. But yeah, for sure, waking up at actually sometimes when people say, "Oh, that's really," you know, you don't start until 9 a.m. That's really great. It's like a normal job.
Yeah.
Actually, there's that feeling of it's 9 a.m. for me. I've slept and had breakfast, but I'm walking into Saturday night.
Yes.
It's still Saturday night in here.
Yeah. That moment is always the trippiest moment because, like, so Alegria or something, you know, I go to bed at 6, you wake up at 3, and then you go to the club at like 5, and it's the weirdest thing walking into that of like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's so trippy because it's Saturday night. You're walking into Saturday night.
Yeah.
So, do you have a spiritual or a sacred practice that you would consider that you use daily, or? Well,
I would say that for me, the 12-step program is my spiritual practice in that it's, you know, in that it involves having a higher power without having a religion.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was raised Catholic, but so much of the world has destroyed anything that I could think about religion. But that's still, you know, it's still in me. That's, you know, if I, you know, was in a terrible spot, I would probably suddenly discover that I could pray. Mm. You know, and that's ingrained within me. But really what I really find very liberating about the 12-step program is that it's exactly that. It's a way to have, you know, it's like, I almost feel like if you feel like you're angry about religion or the fact that, you know, American politicians use religion, and so you want nothing to do with it. It doesn't leave you any option then, does it? It's like, I don't believe in God, therefore I don't believe in anything. And that's the thing I think is really works for me with 12-step fellowships, that it's, having a higher power just needs to be something that makes sense to you. And for me personally, what makes sense to me is I don't know. And I believe that that's just not for me to know.
Yeah.
If the higher power than me, that I can't possibly understand it. But I do know that having faith in something and doing things and putting in, the action of the 12-step fellowship, which is about being honest, which is about helping other people and all of that. I know that all of those things get me to the right place. It always makes me think of like, in Star Wars, when Yoda is teaching Luke Skywalker to use the Force. So he says, "Put on a blindfold." Yeah. It makes no sense. Why would I put on a blindfold? I can't see anything. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what I feel about this. It's like I can't make sense of it. But if I just do it, then things are in a better place, and I, get a better version of me out of it.
Yeah, I love that. Who do you look to for inspiration then, musically?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it's a very interesting question. I mean, I suppose it was people like Danny Tenaglia and Junior Vasquez were like my idols at the time, and in some ways still are, Danny. And but I guess I'm just always looking for new stuff to listen to, and I've really been listening to a lot of music recently that's not house, which is also a bit strange. It's a bit unusual, but like I got really into the Queens of the Stone Age and Arctic Monkeys this year.
All right.
And I feel like it's a good thing, because I think that I've always tried to kind of bring things, whatever things appeal to me, kind of bring them together.
Yeah.
And out comes whatever,
Yeah. I find that for me, I love to listen to completely different genres that I don't play, because it sparks something completely different. If I'm constantly listening to what I'm trying to create, then sometimes I'm just stuck in a formula, I can feel. Yeah. So I like to find.
Also, I feel like, do you find like I want to keep my excitement for house music for the clubs? So
yeah.
It's like fresh and exciting for me too, because sometimes I do listen to my mixes, but a lot of times I'm more excited when I get to the club if I haven't heard the songs in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I keep it fresh for those times.
When your creative process, like you're going into the studio, do you set an intention of what you're going to make, or do you allow just free flow to come through, or is it a mix of both?
Mix of both. And I would say the same thing about a DJ set. It's a mix of both. Like, I just finished something in the studio today and went in with an idea, and it's taken a slightly different turn. And that's what, it's like, for me, that's the most exciting part, when I feel like something's happened and I didn't expect it, and it's better than what I could have thought of,
Yeah. And you're still releasing under Superchumbo. You just did that too, and the Tom Stephan thing. So do you put one hat on and you're like, all right, today I'm going to put my Tom Stephan hat on?
Yeah, well, yes. Actually, yeah. And today was Superchumbo. For a while, Superchumbo just didn't really make sense. Like, I don't know, I guess where I was playing or what I was doing. And then finally I had this idea, and, and people ask about it. And, so finally I just had some ideas. And one of the things that I just did, I thought, this sounds like Superchumbo to me. And I feel like I know what Superchumbo sounds like. And Tom Stephan is just a bit more like, I play a wider variety of things, and I'm probably just a bit more realistic about, I'm in this club. This is what these people like. And so I'm not going to just go on and play some dark tribal techno. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I know, because I loved that Set Yourself Free was, oh my God, that's a beast. And it sets the room on fire.
Yeah,
It does.
nice. Happy to hear that.
Yeah. So how do you feel your sound has changed over the years? What would you say the big differences have been for you as a producer?
Well, I mean, I suppose honestly the biggest difference is technology, and that's. But I don't know. It's a weird thing. I mean, in some ways, I feel like you go in circles, and I go away from myself, and then arrive back at the beginning with maybe something else that I picked up along the way. But I guess that's also why I wasn't doing Superchumbo for a while, because maybe I was just a bit far away from it. But it was like when I started playing kind of on the circuit scene, it was like I had to really make an effort to kind of be able to match the intensity of the other DJs, to keep the energy levels up, match the kind of vocal, number of vocals, to kind of keep everyone engaged, because otherwise I kind of lost them. But then after having that, and then maybe establishing a name for yourself so you have a little bit of trust, then you can start to experiment a bit more in some other things, and then they start to work, and people, so.
What's been one of your favorite in the last, say, 3 years? Like one that you really, really loved, whether it was really big or not. What was one that you really loved?
What do you mean, a production?
Yeah, production.
That's a good question. God, every time somebody asks me this, I always think of like the last thing that I did, I think. But I mean, the last thing, because it's like I'm always most excited about the new thing. Right? But probably the last Superchumbo thing I did, which was this track called Mother. And actually, I have to say, it's one of, it's another thing I suppose maybe you can relate that I play. As once I'm in the DJ booth, then I'm the DJ, and like maybe I'll play my track and maybe I won't.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like now in the DJ booth, and now what's most important is making this party happen.
Yeah.
And so even if you've got something you're going to try out, I'll be like, it's not going to work. I can't play it.
Yeah.
And Mother, for some reason, has worked for me so much over the past 2 years since I did it or whatever, that I've really played it. I've played it a lot. So, and yeah, that certainly hasn't, I don't believe, got much attention. But,
but it's awesome, and it's
heard me playing.
It's a little dark. It's more of a techno. I mean, I love that track. But it's on several different labels though. Which one was it actually originally on?
It was on David Tort's Hotel recording.
Okay. Yeah. So that was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, that was just me trying to, again, just make sense of what works for me, which was kind of playing. I was playing. I don't know. I was playing somewhere, and I had played kind of like a tribal circuity kind of thing, and I started playing this techno record after it, and I just kept the tribal drums going over the top of this, and then I was like, "Oh, this is really good. This is really good. Like, right, I need to do something like this." I had seen this documentary about clubbing in New York. And there was like a shot of Joe Clausel, I think, at Body and Soul, like going nuts in the DJ booth. And behind him was, oh my God, I'm going to forget his name. Oh man, I can't remember the guy's name. That's terrible. Anyway, he screams from the back of the booth, "Turn this motherfucker out." Oh, right. That's got to be a record.
Yeah. So the Music in Me though that you guys did, was that an older thing that you brought back, or straight up new?
No, actually, it was. Jeff from Fierce Ruling Diva. We had him over a couple years ago, performing at a party that I did, and then afterwards, it was like a daytime party. It was like a festival, and then afterwards, we went back to my place, and I said, "Yeah, cool, come on, let's like record some things while you're here." And so, yeah, we just had a couple ideas, and I just had him on the microphone, and that was just something that I had around for a while, and it was just like, on my like to-do list of like, there's something there, it just hasn't made sense yet.
Yeah, no, that was a big. I think we all played that one for a really long time too. I think still. Because you know what I loved about it is the whole band. I don't know if it's actually the Banji Boys sample, but that's what it brings me to when I hear it. Whatever synth that you use in it, that's what it takes me to.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, I mean, and I really love. I'm the couple of things that I've done with David Tour, I really like. I really love his sound. I mean, for me, he really hits that place of between house and tribal and techno. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's it. Really resonates with me.
Yeah, it's just dark enough, but there's still a drive and energy, and it's sexy and
yeah, exactly. Because I know, when people say dark, people are like, ugh.
Right.
But dark doesn't necessarily mean boring.
It does not. No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like, I know that there's dark music that you might,
Yeah, and it's all to be interpreted too. And it's like, for me, if you don't have if you're only in the light, then you're not respecting the dark. And but it's like life, It's like we're humans. We have human experience. Sometimes we're dark. Sometimes we're happy. It's like the music has to represent that. That's what I'm a big believer in.
Yeah.
So outside of those being musical proud moments, what do you find has been your biggest proud moment in life in general?
Oh my God. Proudest moment. Well, I mean, getting sober. I mean, also that's the only thing that if I ever say it's the only thing that I know in my life 100% sure that was the right thing to do. Everything else, you make choices, you take turns, and you get from one place to another. But that's the one thing that absolutely for sure needed to happen, and there's no doubts about that.
Yeah. And if you could tell young Tom anything, what would it be?
Well, God, I always joke when people say it gets better. I normally say, yeah, and then it gets harder. But, I would say that it gets better because actually I can also say, before, when I got sober, I mean, I don't think anybody goes to a 12-step fellowship because they look like fun. I suppose, you walk into those rooms in a pretty desperate place. And I certainly was in a very desperate place, or I never would have done it. I mean, the idea of holding hands and doing this, it's so against, anything I ever wanted to do. And when I think now, I thought at that point, you've totally screwed up your life. There is, this is like, forget it. You've made all the wrong decisions, and this is where it got you. Your life is over. I really thought that. And when I look back now, I think that's nuts. It's so nuts because my life literally had not begun until then. And I thought it was over. So, yeah.
It's beautiful. So when it's all said and done, what do you want the legacy of Tom Stephan to be?
Wow, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know, but I mean, making music that, that people enjoyed or like had experiences to, and like can relate in the same way that I think about, I know, I can think of records that I remember hearing DJ Pierre play this record at Ministry of Sound this one time. I can remember Danny playing, those things when you have those moments, just like, that song kind of like captures the moment for you. And, I have people tell me that about things, music that I've made. And to me, that's just amazing that we could kind of communicate this thing together and share it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your honesty, and I admire everything that you've done. I've always, we've been friendly from afar, and we've played together times, but I mean, I just can remember playing your records as a little pup. So it's really cool to have seen you grow and to get to know you as well. And you're an inspiration to a lot of artists, a lot of DJs, and now for a lot of people that might be questioning their sobriety. So I really honor your courage in talking to me about this, and I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you for doing this too, by the way, and for making this happen, for asking these questions and giving people a place to talk about it.
You are so welcome. You can come back any time you want. Anytime you got something to talk about, or just to talk about nothing. That's okay too.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh yeah!
So that's it for this episode. I hope you found something inspiring. If you did, take a picture with your phone, tag us on Instagram, and let us know what stood out for you. I would really appreciate it. You also can join the Facebook group. We've got a Remix Your World Insiders Facebook group. Come on in. We don't bite. I'm going to link up all of his information in the show notes so that you know how to find him if you're not already following him already. And I'll also link up that epic synth store in Tokyo that I love. So for my gearheads out there and all of my audiophiles, you're going to want to see this store. It is so amazing. If you find yourself in Tokyo, go. It's so awesome. So that's about it for this episode. Tom was requested. I really appreciate the requests. If you have someone you would love to hear me interview, please shoot me an email at podcast@remixyourworld.com or DM me on Instagram. I'm in Instagram a lot more than I am in Facebook. So if you want to shoot me a quick message, hit me up at Instagram at Allison Kalagna. Have an amazing weekend. I really appreciate you taking some time to spend with me today, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Just a heads up, if you are new to meditating and you have no idea where to start and are looking for a little guidance, I've got something for you. I produced something called the Mindful Mixtape, and I'll send it to you. It's 5 guided meditations led by me, all put to music. If you are interested in downloading this, text the words meditate now to 44222 and I'll send that to you now. Or you can find it at remixyourworld.com.